This video is for all the ASD husbands out there. You're not failing your NT wife, you're wired differently. So I want to talk about the truth about emotional needs in neurodiverse marriage. If you're an autistic husband and you feel like no matter how hard you try, it's never quite enough emotionally for your NT wife, I want to start right here. You're not defective, you're not flawed, you're not lazy, you're not a bad husband, you're not a bad father, and you're not failing in the way you think you are. But something is happening because you may be trying to meet emotional needs using a system that wasn't designed for the kind of emotional communication your NT partner is asking for. And that gap right there, that creates a very specific kind of pain, not for just your NT wife, but for you too. Because from your perspective, it often feels like, well, I'm trying, I'm showing up, I'm doing things that should count, and somehow it still lands as not enough to the NT wife. So today, I'm going to break this down in a way that actually makes sense, not to blame either one of you, but to finally explain what's really going on underneath this pattern. So first of all, let's talk about the invisible exhaustion. Let's name something that doesn't get talked about enough. A lot of autistic husbands are quietly exhausted, not physically, but cognitively and emotionally, because you're doing something that most people don't see. You're constantly trying to decode your NT wife's emotional world in real time. Say, what is she feeling? What does she need right now? Or did I respond correctly? Or why is she still upset? And here's the part that matters. That process is not automatic for you. It takes effort, a lot of effort. It takes a lot of processing power. So when your NT wife says something like, well, why is this so hard for you? What you might feel inside is, because I'm thinking through every step and I still don't get it right. And over time, that creates pressure because you start to feel like no matter how much effort I put in, the result doesn't match what she needs. So now let's talk about two different operating systems. I want to zoom out here. What you're dealing with isn't a motivation problem. It's not a lack of love problem. It's not a lack of care problem. It's a wiring difference. Think of it like two different operating systems trying to sync in real time. Your wife, if she's neurotypical, often experiences emotional connection like this. Fast, intuitive, context-rich, and emotion first. She picks up on tone, facial expression, timing, subtle shifts, and responds almost instantly. She is super intuitive. You, on the other hand, may experience emotional processing like this. Slower, more cognitive than intuitive, detailed focused, logic integrated. You're not lacking emotion, you're processing it differently. So here's the collision point we have now. She experiences emotional connection as something that should feel natural and immediate. You experience it as something that requires interpretation and construction. So when she says, I just want you to understand how I feel, what she means is, meet me in this emotional space quickly and intuitively. But what you're doing internally is this. Okay, let me analyze what she's saying. Let me identify the emotion. Let me choose the correct response and deliver it. Well, by the time you get done with all that, she's already feels disconnected. Now, let's look at why your effort doesn't always translate. This is one of the most painful dynamics because you're making effort, but the effort isn't translating in the way that your NT wife can feel. Here's why. A lot of autistic husbands express care through problem solving, providing, being consistent, fixing what's broken, and staying loyal. Yeah, and good job. From your perspective, these are clear signals of love, and I agree. But your NT wife is often looking for something quite different. Emotional mirroring, verbal validation, tone matching, presence without fixing, shared emotional experience. So you might say, well, I handled that situation pretty good. And she's thinking, but you didn't feel it with me. That's not because you don't care. It's because your brain naturally moves toward resolution over resonance. And she's looking for resonance over resolution. Now let's talk about the double bind you're in. I want to talk about the trap this creates for you, because this is where a lot of autistic husbands start to shut down. You're given feedback like, well, you need to be more emotionally available, or you need to understand how I feel. So you try. But when you try, it feels unnatural. It feels scripted, forced, and sometimes it's still not quite right. So then you get more feedback and more correction, and eventually something shifts inside you. You start to think, No matter what I do, I'm not going to get it. No matter how hard I try, I'm just going to get it wrong. And when that belief really sets in deep, you either withdraw, go quiet, stick to logistics, or avoid emotional conversations altogether. Not because you don't care, but because the cost of trying and failing repeatedly becomes too high. Now I want to talk about what she's actually experiencing. So let's balance this out here, because your NT wife is also in a real experience. From her side, it can feel like, well, I'm alone emotionally. He doesn't see me. He doesn't care about me. I have to explain everything. I'm doing all the relationship work. Why doesn't he respond the way I need? And here's the key misunderstanding. She interprets the gap as lack of care. But what's actually happening is a difference in access and expression. You do care, but the way you access and express that care doesn't automatically match your emotional language. Now I want to talk about the reframe that changes everything. Here's the shift I want you to take with you. You are not failing because you don't care enough. You're not failing because you don't love her enough or that you don't want to make her happy. No. You're struggling because you're trying to meet an intuitive emotional system with a cognitive processing system. That doesn't make you less capable. It means you need a different pathway. And that pathway is learnable. Not by becoming someone you're not, but by building bridges between the two systems. If this is your experience, I want you to hear this clearly. You're not alone in this, okay? And you're not the only one sitting there thinking, well, I'm trying, but why isn't it working? There's nothing weak about needing a different map. And there's nothing wrong with you for not instinctively speaking a language you were never wired to speak automatically. Once you understand the pattern, you can start responding differently, more intentionally, more effectively, without losing yourself in the process. Now, if you want help building that bridge, practically, step by step, that's exactly what I focus on this channel. Because this isn't about trying harder, it's about finally understanding what's actually happening and working with your wiring instead of against it, okay? Like, subscribe, comment. I will read and respond to your comments. I'll see you in the next video. Would you like to schedule a paid private coaching session? This will be in the form of a face-to-face Zoom call. Underneath any of my videos, you'll see this Calendly link. If you click on that link, it'll open up my calendar. You can pick the available days and times that works for your schedule. You'll get a follow-up email immediately after purchasing a session that will have the Zoom link that coincides with the day and time that you picked. I will get an email too that you scheduled a session, and I will be available on that exact day and time, and we will talk. I look forward to working with you.